Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
Hey guys, today's date, May the 15th, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm host the most, Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast, since we try to be in the very every syllable of the word, which means that we do take news from the most reputable sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, the Daily Beast, wherever you get your extreme left or extreme right views from. We simply do that. We simply do not do that. We give you the facts and just the facts. Aside from that, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly on this show. But at the same time, there may be things that might be shown, especially tonight, that might be of a more sensitive or extreme or graphical nature. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So how do we usually start this? Outside of, well, I had it in my mind when I first heard this. Still don't believe it, but I guess in the words of Michael Buffer, let's get ready to rumble old people style? Question mark?
To our top story, President Joe Biden challenging Donald Trump to two debates ahead of the presidential election in November. President Joe Biden calling out Trump over his ongoing criminal trial in Manhattan, telling the former president to, quote, make my day. Watch.
Donald Trump lost two debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Ouch, that Wednesday reference, that's the day that they don't have court. Former President Donald Trump responding, saying he's ready to debate Biden as soon as next month, saying, quote, let's get ready to rumble. So let's bring in ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks and presidential historian Mark Updegrove for more on all of this. Mary Alice, let's start with you. Biden is bucking tradition by calling out his opponent on social media. How did this all come about? Because there was some concern that there might not be any debates.
Absolutely. There was huge concern. I mean, we had both camps saying that they were not going to participate in what has been the historic format for debates, these debates that are put on by the Commission of Presidential Debates. It's kind of a group, a consortium of D.C. News outlets that have put on presidential debates for the last several decades. And we had the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign both saying that they weren't really interested in participating in these debates. So we were worried we might not get any. But like you said, this news this morning, this announcement, this social media video from the president saying that he's ready. And actually some news just in the last little bit, the volley continues. We have an announcement from President Biden that he has accepted a debate invitation from CNN on June 27th. He said, back over to you now, Donald. Clearly, he wants to move forward and get an actual date and time on the calendar. A big question now whether the former president will accept, Phil.
And Mark, as we wait to figure out if the former president will agree to that debate, talk about the timeline. June, is that normal?
Not at all. No, you usually wait until the fall after the conventions have been held, both the Democratic and Republican national conventions. There's usually not a debate until September. In fact, the first one that was scheduled by the Commission on Presidential Debates was slated for the middle of September. That's normal presidential debate election season, right after the conventions have been held and we go into the last few months before the election. So, Philip, this is highly unusual for so many reasons.
Highly unusual, but I would argue probably good for the voter with the way things have been going in this election cycle. Mary Alice, what do the latest poll numbers tell us about this race?
Yeah, I mean, a big.
Well, let's just stop right there because poll numbers is everything. But, well, not really everything. It's just, well, numbers. The point I'm getting at is, yes, it seems that we're going to have a battle of grumpy old men at the debates because we know how well Trump debates by not showing up, even though we report on this podcast that during the Republican presidential nomination race, the multiple times that Trump has decided not to show, even though his excuse at the time was highly accurate. I'm leading in the polls. Because let's keep this in mind. He outdid several different people by not doing anything but being himself. These are people that went on debates. I am literally talking about America's favorite Uncle Tom, Tim Scott, America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, a guy who might as well be a con man in politics for Vic Chomsky, and let's not forget, I don't want to say her name, but let's just be honest, it's not her real name anyway. But outdoing all of them by doing nothing. And that's what led Trump, or I should say allowed Trump, to be where he is now, which is about to grasp the Republican nomination, even though his court dates are mysteriously either getting delayed or pushed back. And I'm on the federal ones. That's the crazy part. Even though he's still his first court case, which is kind of a run to the litter, is the fact of him denying payments to a porn star that he messed around with while he was married at the same time. May have actually happened during his election, but I'm sorry, during his campaign. But again, still up in the case, that case still going on. We'll leave it where it is. But Trump debating is nothing new. He tried to debate Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton might as well be the Nostradamus of this whole thing. She called Trump out to a T, and all Trump could say was, yeah. That's all he could say. I'm not compromised. China doesn't own me. The Saudis don't own me. Yeah, pretty much everybody does. And Hillary called it. Hillary called you compromised. Hillary said you had been to Putin. Hillary said almost everything Hillary pointed out during their debate on Trump was accurate. And at the same time, all Trump's rebuttals, nah. Mega. That's all you got from him. So you can only imagine if he does go against Biden. Now, Biden has debated in his time. But again, do people really want to see that? And also on the other side, I really do. If there is one thing that I wish we could change about the presidential debates, they cannot be in the hands of the Democratic Party, nor the Republican Party, or the party of whatever candidate it's running. Because here's my thing. If you really want people to start paying attention to the election process, including the debates that happen, we have to take them out of the hands of the parties. Now, here's my rule. Here's what I would do. If I had the ability, or if the power was given to me, presidential debates are required. They are mandatory. You have no choice but to show up. At the same time, the questions, the format are not in the hands of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or the party of said candidate. You have to answer every question that is given to you. And at the same time, the person who is the moderator has mic control. What I mean by that is, if you want to shut the other person up from talking, allow the other person to give their rebuttal or give their answer, click. Can't really say much if your mic doesn't work. At the same time, we need to have a format to where it takes that power from them and gives it back to the American people. Because again, you want to hold a candidate's feet to the fire, put them in troubled water and see if they sink or swim. Now, I'm not saying that Trump wouldn't do it. I'm not saying Biden wouldn't do it. I'm just saying it'll be fun watching Trump trying to answer questions, because we know how well he doesn't answer questions when it doesn't rile up his base. Keep in mind, he's a con man fleecing his flock. He's going to keep them happy and angry because they're going to keep paying his legal fees, right along with the Republican convention, because they're paying those legal bills too, which I don't know how in the world that's not alarming. The Republican National Convention, Trump's own people, are paying this man's legal bills. If you are a lawyer for Trump, it is Christmas for you right now. The hours that they're billing to keep this man off his 91 federal indictments. Again, if you're a lawyer for Trump, it's Christmas. Probably Christmas for your great-great-grandkids by this point. But the point I'm making is we have to change the debate format. One show I love to watch, The Newsroom. The Newsroom did a great thing about how they should change the debate format for presidential elections. And the fact that it hasn't been implemented yet says a lot. I do believe we can get people interested back in politics. I do believe that we can get people back interested in the debate process. You just have to take it out of the hands of those parties. Well, if they do that, that means that person won't come. Well, doesn't that mean that hurt their chances in voting? For example, if you told Trump, hey, your Republican Party has no control in this debate, we tell you the time, we tell you the date, we do not tell you the questions, and you are required to show up because you are running for president. Would Trump show up? Probably not. Even more so, he'd probably go back on Truth Social and complain, this is all a big witch hunt. They put all these rules and regulations because they don't want me. They don't want you. They don't want your current president, the man who's winning at everything. They don't want him there, so they made up all these rules, and that's why I'm not there. Meh, MAGA. That's what they'll do. That's what they'll do. But I just wonder on the other side, would Biden agree to it? Because you can't always say Republicans don't do everything, although current history would sit there and suggest that, yeah, Republicans ain't done spit. I can't argue that. But at the same time, the Democrats would also have to have their feet held to the fire, which means in this presidential debate that the only way this works out is to take the power from them, give it back to the people, but make these people who are supposed to be civil servants anyway to the American people, hold them to a list of mandatory requirements. And let's just see who shows up and who shows out. That's all I'm saying. But again, move right along, guys, because again, I have to remind folks, if Trump was elected, you understand this man said a lot of crazy stuff, right? Especially what he said in the New York Times. Remember, this is the man that sat there and said on day one, he would deport 15 million to 20 million people, maybe employing the use of the National Guard. Keep in mind what I said. This man said on day one, he wants to deport nearly 20 million people by any means necessary. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't get. Because a lot of people hear this and they go, oh, that's a beautiful idea. That's a great idea. At the same time, and it's always, this is why I stay and said, he's a con man. Because he sit there saying, well, these immigrants got to go, and because they're taking up jobs. Really? What job is an immigrant doing that a red-blooded American doesn't want to do? Because again, I ask this question all the time when I hear they're taking our jobs. Okay, who's going to be in the field? Who's going to be in the lawn care industry? Who's going to be your painters? Who's going to be your waiters, your cooks, your cleaners? All these jobs that you don't want to do that an immigrant may have been doing. And I'm not just saying of the menial jobs. Let's not forget, some of these immigrants could be doctors, lawyers. Some of them could be welders, tradesmen, if you will. I'm not just saying the low-level jobs, but the jobs that we actually depend on people having there. Imagine if Trump did get this, not only would certain industries be affected, overall all industries be affected. I always make this joke. If Trump follows up with his threat of deporting illegal immigrants, I am just saying Florida, Texas would look a little different. That's all I'm saying. But again, he's not the only one that's out there making crazy things. President Biden is doing something that I never thought he would do, even though the argument seems logical. But, if I'm a conservative and I'm pointing this out, I'm just going to sit there and say the same man who barked at President Trump, I can't believe I said that. The same president who barked at Trump on tariffs because Trump called himself a tariff man and put multiple tariffs on China. Unfortunately, Joe Biden is doing the same thing. And again, I have to ask why.
To Washington now, President Biden is set to impose a new round of tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and other high-tech products. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, has the details for us. Good morning to you, Selena.
Hey, good morning to you, Robin. In just a few hours, President Biden will announce new tariffs on $18 billion worth of Chinese imports. This also includes quadrupling tariffs on Chinese electric cars from 25 to 100%. Now, this also targets key sectors, including batteries, medical equipment, steel, aluminum, semiconductors, and solar cells. Now, the White House says all of these moves will protect those industries from cheaper Chinese goods that they warn could wipe out the competition. And with the election just 6 months away, both Biden and Trump are fighting to be tougher on China and to reach out to those key working class voters. But new polling shows that Trump is ahead of Biden in several key battleground states where manufacturing is a top issue. A new New York Times poll shows that in Michigan, President Biden is down 7 points against Trump among registered voters. In Pennsylvania, Biden is behind by 3 points. But in Wisconsin, Biden leads Trump by 2 points, Robin.
And so, Selena, how are Trump and Biden's plans for tariffs different?
Yeah, Robin. Well, Trump has said that if he's elected again, he would dramatically increase tariffs on China, while Biden officials say their approach is more targeted, strategic, and will not increase inflation. But they are keeping in place tariffs from the Trump administration on some $300 billion worth of Chinese goods. And Robin, studies have shown that it's U.S. consumers who largely bore the brunt of those tariffs.
Yeah, the studies do.
Yeah, but again, I understand that what Biden is saying. Biden is pretty much going to say, look, we have to put tariffs on the things that we're producing here. Semiconductors, electrical vehicles, things of that nature. Here's the problem. You also want to put it on steel because, unfortunately, steel from China is way cheaper than here in the U.S. Because the steel industry actually died because a lot of those things went overseas because they were cheaper and labor was more easy to get a hold of. Easy to get a hold of, if I'm going to be honest. But here's the thing about putting a tariff on that. If the majority of electrical vehicles from China are going to be purchased, then yes, it's going to probably defer people. But at the same time, semiconductors, steel, and things of that nature, shouldn't we focus more about getting those sort of industries up and running here in the U.S. before we go to China? Because keep in mind, U.S. has went from a exporting goods country to a consumer importing goods country. A lot of things that we know and love come from overseas. At the same time, you want to put a tariff on specific things. Now, granted, you're not like Trump and not putting tariffs on everything, which drives prices up because, again, those savings are passed along to the consumer. We know this. At the same time, though, I'm just wondering where Biden's putting tariffs on this. Are we going to be spending more dollars on investment to basically counteract this? Or could we just, I don't know, think about reigniting the steel industry here in the United States? Just saying, that might be helpful. But speaking of things that are helpful, because we did talk about the protests, guys, that are happening across campuses about the fact that of Palestinians being in harm's way as Israel wants to press forward. We also sat there and said that the U.S. President Biden, has informed welfare queen Netanyahu that, hey, we are not for the invasion of Rafah. If you do this without us. And again, Netanyahu and Israel are pressing ahead. Again, this is the part where I sit there and I have to ask this question. You know, what type of oppression is it that Israel is saying that they're having if they are the oppressors? I mean, again, they have been told, as you can see there, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken did say that, again, he delivered an ultimatum from the president to Netanyahu, which basically says, if you go through with this, again, Israel's invasion of Rafah, if they go through with this, the weapons and things of that nature and support that the U.S. is giving Israel may end. And again, it should. Because, again, guys, I say this all the time because if you don't know what's going on with Israel, Palestine, and Hamas, please do your research. Because I hate to say it, there is a level of oppression here, and Israel is claiming oppression. You can't really claim oppression if you're invading a country. I'm just saying, you look more like the oppressor, not the oppressed. And again, this is why I keep on saying, with these campuses that are protesting this, and they're trying to crack down on these campuses, I am just saying Israel is doing their hardest to, I guess, make this go away, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon. That we should really be looking at Israel a little bit differently. And again, maybe not paying foreign aid to them and giving them military support. I'm just saying, if you really want Israel's attention, cut them off. Let's see how far Netanyahu does well when he's by himself in the Middle East, and he's apparently got more enemies than he can shake a stick at. But I digress. But other things that you should kind of be ticked off about, because, again, the U.S. and Ukraine, we have funded them very well. And come to find out, we might be funding them a little bit more in the form of $2 billion.
We have, of course, the supplemental, and the assistance from the supplemental is on its way. In fact, some of it's already been delivered. But today I want to add to that by announcing that we will provide an additional $2 billion in foreign military financing for Ukraine. And we put this together in a first of its kind defense enterprise fund. And it has three components. One is to provide weapons today. So this will assist Ukraine in acquiring those weapons. Two is to focus as well on something that Dmytro just talked about, investing in Ukraine's defense industrial base, helping to strengthen even more its capacity to produce what it needs for itself, but also to produce for others. And finally, using this fund to help Ukraine purchase military equipment from other countries, not just the United States, for Ukraine's use. We have a
Okay, so apparently the U.S. is now helping Ukraine in weapons financing. $2 billion on top of the multiple $1 billion that we have already sent Ukraine, and now we're helping Ukraine to purchase weapons from us, but also invest in their own manufacturing of their own machinery and weapons. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the military-industrial complex. You know, it's honestly mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling that, and don't get me wrong, Ukraine is still fighting Russia. Okay, I get it. And again, I keep saying U.S. is not the world police. Again, I get it. But how much money at this point is being sunk into Ukraine? And we have a problem here in the U.S. where, I kid you not, it takes them mere hours to approve, and this is from the House and the Senate, it takes them mere hours to approve money to be sent to Ukraine and Taiwan and other foreign countries. It takes mere hours for Congress to vote for their own pay raise. Something that is so weird to me. How in the world can politicians vote for their own pay raises when really it should be us, because we are the ones that are paying their salaries? And yet, this is all done in a matter of mere hours. That, for the simple fact of the matter, that yes, Ukraine and other foreign countries, including Israel, will get additional funding in mere hours. Meanwhile, at the end of the school year, certain counties in certain states will be facing teacher layoffs. And the reason why? Only because there was at one point a pandemic, it was a pandemic COVID bill that introduced $190 billion into education. That particular measure is about to expire. And it's crazy that no one in Congress, well, I'm sorry, I should take it back, a few in Congress are talking about this and saying, okay, we kind of need to do something about this, because again, if we don't, that same funding that was there during the pandemic will no longer be there. And again, we have seen this in every city and every state in the U.S. The first budget to ever get hit is education, and it gets hit every year. States have to scramble with their budgets to see how much they can save. And they always put education up there, which means public schools get less. And if public schools get less, that means they don't have enough. That means they have even that much less to pay teachers. They have that much less to keep staff. They have that much less to keep schools maintained. Because again, schools need to be upkept. Schools upkeep need to be maintained. As far as buildings and infrastructure and things of that nature are concerned, it all costs money. But it amazes me so that if they keep cutting education, which I think that in the idea of just some individuals out there, Republicans, they want public education to fail. Because again, the Department of the education from a U.S. standpoint gets cut all the time. Defense gets a blank check every fiscal period. And keep in mind, The Department of Defense has failed every audit it's ever been given, and they've been given trillions. I want to say billions, but I think we've crossed a trillion marks with the Department of Defense. They've been given honestly Brinks trucks amounts of money, and at the same time, none of it's been accounted for. But they get a blank check every year. Meanwhile, education gets cut along with everything else. And again, with that COVID measure going out, it's going to make harder for public education to actually help these kids. But at the same time, Congress is silent. Congress is silent. And I only wonder why, because I don't think it's going to be brought up until the elections get there. Because again, they talk about education, but only during elections to get your attention. And again, this goes back to the whole debate format that I was talking about, as far as taking that out of the hands of both parties and giving it back to the people and seeing what these candidates actually do. But that also being said, guys, I did want to cover this story because Harrison Butker, kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, gave a commencement speech at Beckton, and forgive me, but this is the weirdest name I ever heard for a college, Beckton College. And if I don't pronounce it right, I apologize in advance. Really sorry, not sorry. But again, weird name for a college. Anyway, he actually gave a commencement speech. Not that uncommon. People out there have been giving commencement speeches at colleges all the time. This is the time where you have students graduating from whether it's elementary or high school or college. For all you class of 2024 graduates out there, congratulations. Hopefully you weren't in this room, especially directed to ladies, when this idiot decided to open his mouth for the next 10 seconds. And well, let's just say he really believes in Stepford wives.
It is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. She's a primary educator to our children. She's the one who ensures I never let football or my business become a distraction from that of a husband and father. She's the person that knows me best at my core, and it is through our marriage that, Lord willing, we will both attain salvation. I say all of this to you because I have seen it firsthand, how much happier someone can be when they disregard the outside noise and move closer and closer to God's will in their life. Isabel's dream of having a career might not have come true, but if you asked her today if she has any regrets on her decision, she would laugh out loud without hesitation and say, heck no. As a man who gets a lot of praise and has been given a platform to speak to audiences like this one today, I pray that I always use my voice for God and not for myself. Everything.
Yeah, let's just stop right there. The fact that he sat there for nearly 20 minutes, mind you, it's a 20-minute speech. It was that part where he sat there and told the women who were college graduates, by the way, sat there and said that the greatest lie you were ever told is that you need to basically be homemakers. Now, again, let me stress this very heavily. Because, ladies, if you decide that you want to be a housewife, a homemaker, hey, that's up to you. That's cool. That's your choice. This douchebag, however, The fact that he sat there and said, well, you know, a lot of you will be leaving out of here hoping to start families, making babies, and starting homes because that's in your vocation. I've never heard the word vocation be used so many times to where it might as well just be stay in your lane. It's like, ladies, yes, we allowed you education. Now go back and be what we need you to be, in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant. That is cringy as all get out from a kicker, which, again, I'm surprised no one hasn't sat there and said, you know what you need to do, man? Shut up and kick the ball. Because he's sitting there saying, well, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be the man I am today. Cool. How about your wife do the speech and you go home? I mean, that makes more sense than anything else. But this is the problem I have with this, because his mindset, that particular mindset, is why so many women are facing hardships. Because I've said it once, I've said it again, whether it's conservatives or whether it's certain religious people, they don't see women anything more than broodmares. You are basically, I mean, in most people, in some people's eyes, women are seen as nothing more than household homemakers and baby machines. And again, that's wrong. It's wrong, even though some people say, well, it was a Catholic college. I could care less what college it was, whether it was non-denominational or whether it was specifically Catholic. How in the blue hell can you tell somebody who put time, energy, and money, especially money, into getting a degree in hopes of getting the career of their choice, only for you being so high and mighty because you were a kicker that got lucky in life and decided that, hey, because of your station, you guys need to be homemakers? No, the woman you married, the woman that decided to sire your children, decided that she can be a homemaker. Because guess what? You being a kicker in the NFL, well, on a successful team, well, I guess you can afford it. But at the same time, for the women out there that rather choose a career, shouldn't be held or regarded as nothing more than just, well, you guys need to stay in your vocation. I'm sorry, Mr. Butker. I think you need to go ahead and remove the football from your ass, because apparently it got stuck up there and nobody forgot to remove it. But again, that's cringy for a commencement speech. At the same time, I am so glad that so many people are calling him on it. Will nothing happen? Probably not. Let's be honest. He didn't. I mean, yes, he did insult women. But again, what do you expect is going to happen from a college that did invite him? And at the end of that speech, however, got a freaking standing ovation. Cringy at best. But move right along, guys. I did want to cover this little part because as unfortunately, Dorito may get the Republican nomination. Again, the whole battle of what happens next. Who's going to be the VP to this idiot? Because America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, is going to be it. But at a particular dinner with a particular high bill per plate, we saw some interesting people show up, I guess, to kiss the greasy Dorito fried ring, if you will.
Several of former President Trump's potential running mates were seen leaving a big money fundraiser in New York overnight, including North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. Tickets cost up to $844,000 to support the Trump campaign. As he left the event, reporters asking Trump if his future vice president was there.
Mr. President, was your next VP in there with you tonight?
He gave no response. Earlier, Burgum and Ramaswamy showing solidarity with Trump, attending his hush money trial, joining House Speaker Mike Johnson and other Trump surrogates at the courthouse.
And again, we shouldn't be surprised by this. This is kiss the ring territory. And it doesn't, I mean, here's the thing. It's the GOP party, the party of old white people. Why are we surprised that Trump, even though embattled Trump, going through court cases, under indictments, you still have people that are going to be there and, be cheerleaders. Lindsey Graham, hell, used to be the biggest Trump cheerleader until he come back to bite him in the ass. But Vivek Ramaswamy, oh yeah, Tim Scott, yeah. Kristi Noem, I can see that too. I am surprised that Nikki Haley has not joined. Nikki Haley, that's not her real name. I'm surprised she hasn't thrown her hat in the ring, but she also hasn't thrown her support behind Donald Trump either. So that's going to be interesting. But again, I've said it best. The field that he has to pick from is funny and comical as all get out, because these are all failed presidential candidates that couldn't beat him. And now he's enjoying the entire thing of who he's going to pick. And trust me, I am pretty sure Tim Scott's going to be disappointed twice, because ain't no way in God's green earth Trump is going to pick him to be his running mate. And Vivek Ramaswamy reminds him too much of a younger Trump. I can kind of see that, because he'll sit there and says that's his little brown guy. I'm just saying, I wouldn't put it past him. But that remains to be determined. But anyway, the next video the next video or story, I should we say to you guys, is that again, it's going to be graphic. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. It is going to be graphic, so definitely viewer discretion is advised. That a black man was hit, and it was hit by an unmarked police car and died several hours later. And well, the wheels of justice turn slow whenever blue and black are behind it.
Everybody keep asking this question. What do I supposed to tell my grandkids? How do you tell your grandkids that a police officer killed them, killed their father, ran them down like a dog?
Hands behind your back. Go over. Behind your back. Hands behind your back. Hold on, take it easy. Why do you need like this? The colonel that we met with, who's the number one person in Michigan State Police, he told us that very day, the day of this tragic death, this avoidable, preventable, tragic death. Don't move, man. Our medical director for
I wouldn't have thought in a million years that my son would be taken from me by the police in the way he was taken.
I can still imagine him today as Mother's Day. He would be coming around this corner right now, giving me hugs and kisses. Tell my baby I love him. This is the worst day of my life.
And again, that officer has been placed on modified leave as of right now, as it's being investigated. But yeah, think about that. A hit and run by an unmarked police cop car, and they're still trying to arrest this man, as this man is literally and figuratively fighting for his life. But we will cover that story as it goes along. Again, it's always interesting whenever there's a police-involved shooting, or in this case, a hit and run. I want them to explain the justification of them using the car as a weapon. Because if you've never been hit by a car, whether it's doing 50 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, a car is a living weapon. And again, the impact from that, whether it's at 20 or 50, doesn't matter. It's still hard hitting. At the same time, the young man has died from this. So now it's become a homicide. Although, again, we're going to wait to see what happens, because here's my theory. I keep on pointing some of my theories at this. Now, there was body cam footage that they released, because they always say they release it for transparency. If it's released quickly, that usually means that they try to say, well, the officer has nothing to do with it. But if they take their time with it and have to investigate angle by angle, what's there to do? Because police have qualified immunity, which they shouldn't have. Police can wait up until 48 hours to give a statement, which I think is bullshit. And at the same time, they can review evidence and statements before giving their own. How else can they get away with this unless we actually have reform? We actually have reformed law enforcement, especially in the sense that not only with law enforcement, but with judges, because some judges kind of take their power a little bit too seriously. Like, for instance, this judge in Alabama, because again, this is a story where an Alabama man was pulled over by a cop. Did get a ticket because he was speeding, and decided to sit there and tell the officer, get your ass out of the way. Now, here's the thing. The judge heard the comment about this and sat there and said, you have a choice. You either can apologize to the officer for cursing at him or face up to 30 days in jail, which the man, Mr. Reginald Burke, said, He's ready to take this to court because he believes his First and Eighth Amendment rights have been violated. Because here's the thing. Alabama law does have a law prohibits using abusive or obscene language in public. Even though he wasn't charged with disorderly conduct, apparently they're trying to say, well, the ass is a cuss word. And here's my thing, and I love how he says this. Burke's response to this is, ass is not a curse word. It's in the Bible. And that just goes to show you, of all the things, and of course, this is in Alabama of all places, that of all the things, how is this being blown up to the point where it is? Sure, we've all got pulled over by law enforcement. Sure, we've got tickets, whether justified or not. But all he said was, get your ass out the way. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to hit the person. He was trying to hit the officer. But at the same time, what does this need to be to the judge? Because the judge is basically trying to throw his weight around. That to me is an abuse of power. Apologize to the officer, you get 30 days in jail. Well, I guess I'll spend 30 days in jail. But for what reason? At what cost? Because I think that if a judge has enough time to sit there and tell a person, either apologize to the cop or you go to jail, apparently he does not have enough on his docket to really be looking over it and needs to be reassigned, or at least be given something else. But again, it's a story that's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's obscene. At the same time, don't they have other crimes they need to be presiding over? Just saying. But speaking of other things that I want to get to, guys, the American homeownership dream. I know for me and for others out there, owning a home with a nice fence and a backyard and a garage seems like a dream. However, with the current economy the way it is, that dream is getting farther and farther out of reach.
Storm for the housing market. Home prices are unaffordable for many in the country as they face a massive housing shortage, and mortgage rates are hovering at levels not seen in more than a decade. ABC's business correspondent Alexis Christoforous has the details. Hi, Alexis.
Home prices soaring across much of the country despite higher mortgage rates, which should lower demand and push prices down.
If you look at any affordability metric, it is flashing at least a yellow, if not a red signal. Housing is expensive.
A recent Realtor.com survey found nationally, buyers need to make about $116,000 a year to purchase a typical home. Prices up a staggering 40% in just the past 4 years, putting home ownership out of reach for many.
It used to be late 20s or early 30s when people became first-time home buyer, but now it's becoming in the mid-30s or even late 30s.
The persistent lack of homes for sale keeping prices high. Many sellers staying on the sidelines thanks to what economists call the lock-in effect. Homeowners unwilling to sell and give up the ultra-low mortgage rates they locked in just a few years ago. A $400,000 home in 2021, when mortgage rates were just below 3%, meant a monthly payment of nearly $1,700. At today's rate, that same home is about $1,000 more each month. Home prices defying gravity nationwide, especially in the Northeast, where prices are up 11% from a year ago. That has some declaring we're in a housing bubble, but experts say not so fast.
Prices are being driven by supply and demand. We don't have those irrational reasons of funny, risky mortgages in the marketplace, and therefore the housing market is on solid foundation.
It may be on solid foundation, but financing a home is not expected to get much cheaper anytime soon. The rate on a 30-year mortgage you saw there currently a little over 7%. Experts I spoke to expect those rates to end the year slightly lower. Diane, we're probably looking at about 6.5%.
So, Alexis, the real estate is usually cyclical. So is there any sense of when that cycle might restart and when home buyers might see some relief here?
I think a couple of things need to happen. One is that mortgage rates need to come down. One way to help do that, the Federal Reserve promising to cut interest rates. If we get a cut later this year, that might bring some relief. It won't be huge relief, but something. And then we also need more homes to be built. We need contractors to go out there, build homes. They've been dealing with higher material costs and labor costs. It's starting to loosen up a little bit, but if we had that combo working together, we'd start to see some relief.
All right, Alexis.
Well, let's think about this for a second. So, I'm sorry. So, you're telling me that the housing market is because of supply and demand. Okay, fine. You have multiple houses out there that are for rent or for sale. So, there's plenty of supply. Folks want to get out of the renting race because, especially here in Nashville, renting is freaking high. Really and truly that it is. So above all else, yes, there's also demand. So because you do have supply and you do have demand, it still doesn't explain why a $300,000 or $400,000 up home is still almost on the table to get in this market. Oh, let's blame the Federal Reserve, and let's blame the Federal Reserve, and they still haven't cut down the rate. The Feds haven't cut down the rate yet. Well, apparently we're still dealing with inflation, where really it's just corporate greed because they're basically just driving up prices to ramp up profits. But the Feds don't cut the rate. People are still not getting paid enough. Wages are stagnant. Food and everything else is going up. That right there is the domino effect that needs to be talked about. But again, as the rates aren't being cut, banks are very fickle to actually give out mortgage loans. Banks are very going to be slow to give out credit. At the same time, those homes, that are plenty of them out there, will still remain vacant until somebody with money comes along. So I'm sorry, it's just the excuse they gave, where it's like, well, it's supply and demand. Everybody wants a home. Let's kind of point this out here. They're in no situation, form, or any of that nature to where there is a demand and the supply is low. Look around. Even in my home state of Tennessee, there's plenty of homes out there that are available for sale or for rent. It's not that freaking hard. But at the same time, if you're going to sit there and use that excuse, let's just call it what it is. If people got paid more, if the Feds did cut the rate down, if banks were enticed to actually give out mortgages, a la 2001, might be slightly different. Or I should say 1996, when home buying was a lot easier. Whereas now, fast forward to 2024, not so much. Hence the reason why, guys, I keep saying, whenever it comes to the housing market, it's almost a dream. It really is, because at this point, unless you win the lottery or just happen to have it in with a branch manager at a bank, it is harder to get a hold of a home because they'd rather have you being a renter and paying forever and a day and watching that money go nowhere but down the drain. You might have a roof over your head, but that money doesn't equal equity. And hence why renters are becoming more, why those apartments and condos and even those zero lot homes that, build straight up and have no space between them, all renting. Because again, renting has an infinite number of payments. Whereas if you're a homeowner, eventually you will stop paying and be able to actually own the land you purchased. But I digress. But speaking of work, guys, I did want to cover this because this is interesting. Because as a person who has been working since he was 15 years old, people get burned out. But this one CEO is doing something that I think would actually help other companies do, that said they care about their employees and that they're a family and all that bullshit. If this CEO does follow through with this experiment, I think other companies can learn from this, especially when it comes to working and mental health.
We went from desktops to laptops to mobiles. We're working, and there was no discussion around, wait, this has gotten out of control.
Preventing employee burnout has become such an important priority that nearly 1/3 of large U.S. companies are exploring shorter work weeks. One of them is Exos, a performance wellness company. CEO Sarah Rabo-Hagan saw the burnout and wanted to fix it.
It was a huge issue going on across all of our clients. And so we were like, well, hey, we could be a company that could help to figure out how to solve this.
Her answer was something she calls You Do You Fridays.
So tell us about You Do You Fridays. What does that mean? So it means you do you. So you may choose to say, this Friday, I'm exhausted. I need to go spend time out hiking. Other people may say, Friday's my day to just do quiet work and not be disturbed. But what we put in place was you cannot email, text, write to any of your colleagues. You can't set meetings. It is You Do You Friday. And What goes hand in hand with You Do You Friday is how we constructed the other days of the week. We structured this because we know actually from training high performance athletes that you put a lot of load on them and then you follow it with really intentional recovery to get more out of how the athlete's performing. So think about us in the workplace. Like if we're working 80-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks, which some people are, it's like, how on earth is your body ever recovering? Of course you're going to get burned out. So the more we can help to introduce this concept that recovery isn't weak, it's actually part of preparing you for higher performance, I think the better for all of us.
Rob O'Hagan partnered with the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School to study how a 4-day work week impacted employee performance.
We were trying to figure out, can we prove that with a 4-day work week that employees will perform at the same level or better and feel better? And the answer was yes.
During the 6 months of the study, Exos also reported that employee burnout dropped from 70% to 30%.
It sounds like this works in part because Exos's culture is already structured in this way where you have employees who are probably already having a lot of sort of freedom over their hours. Do you think this is something that can work anywhere?
Yeah, it's funny. We get asked that question a lot. And I actually do. Like, I think it requires leadership really being innovative in how they think about what work really is. You know, as a funny example, look at the business you're in. It's like, do we need like the same TV anchors on every single day of the week? That's a question, just because we've always had that, right? Like every industry can really think about, is there a way to stagger shifts? Are there ways, even if you can't do the 4-day work week, to really think about what we call a recovery first culture?
And think about that for a second. I'm not against it at all. That's funny, You Do You Fridays. It's mental health. Let's be honest, since the pandemic, a lot of us have been working. And, you know, if you got to make ends meet, you're probably working more than one job, maybe picking up more than one shift. You maybe have a family, maybe trying to keep ends meet, trying to make commitments, or just trying to, you know, keep everybody happy. Again, that's a lot of plates are spinning in one spot to where individuals do feel burnout. And again, mental health, I keep talking about this, mental health is actually taking a lot more shine, or I should be saying getting a lot more on the spotlight than it should. Because if you work and aren't able to take vacations, days off, things of that nature, yes, that builds up. It does build up, and you do get people that get burned out. So I like the fact that, you know, even though it's a CEO, and I know I have to stop myself, because every time I hear a CEO go, well, we're like a family, and I kind of cringe a little bit, because you need to, and again, this is just for you guys out there that join the workforce. Any company that says we're like a family, run far, run fast, don't look back. But I do love the fact that she sat there and did introduce a 4-day work week, which again, a lot of European countries are doing, and it's finding much success because folks want to be able to do one thing during the week where they may not be able to. There might be things that might only be done or might only be accessed Monday through Friday instead of waiting for Saturday. Folks want to be able to, you know, relax or spend time with their children. Some folks want to be able to do other things except work themselves to death for 5 days, only to feel like those 2 days off is like a lunch break, because time really does move that fast. So I like the fact that it's a mental health day. It's like, you know what? On that Friday, if you need to take a mental health day, take it. You need to check out, take it. Go outside, do it. But it's amazing that very few companies aren't saying that, are saying this. Very few. Not the big names, because big name corporations it would be a cold day down south if you ever heard a company like, for example, Amazon say, you know what, guys, Amazonians, you do you Fridays. If you don't want to come in, you don't got to come in. You want to take a mental health day, take a mental health day. You would lose your mind if Walmart, of all people, sat there and said, you know what, guys, on Fridays, do what you guys need to do. We're okay. You will never hear corporations say that. Corporations will say all this. Corporations will give tips on how to do time management or how to do work-life balance. They'll say these key buzzwords because that's what their think tanks and people that were brought in to assess the situation, they'll say that. But at the same time, Imagine if companies did do a 4-day work week. Imagine if companies really did embrace the work from home, because again, for a lot of jobs out there, a lot of jobs can be done from home. Now, there are some jobs that do require to be in person, understandable, but for a lot of those jobs, they can be done from home. And anybody who's ever worked from home, myself included, will have a very hard time ever having to go back to the office, because the idea of working your own home, enjoying your own coffee, not having to drive in the traffic, therefore there and back, all I'm saying is it works out beautifully. And I can't knock you for that, because you just shine a light on the fact that people just need a break. And it's high time corporations actually did that. So kudos to that. Moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this story as well, because the Department of Education has announced new loans, new interest rates on loan, new rates on loans. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to go ahead and say this now. Department of Education, you're not doing enough.
Now the families feeling the pressure when it comes to paying for college, especially right now. Elizabeth Schulze joins us with a student loan reality check. Good morning to you, Elizabeth.
Hey, good morning, Robin. And families planning to take out student loans starting in July will have to pay the highest interest rates in 16 years. The Education Department says that the interest rates on a federal undergraduate loan will hit 6.53% in the next academic year. That is a full percentage point higher than this year's rate. And it's because we've seen those borrowing costs go up as the Federal Reserve has tried to fight inflation. This change, it can make a big difference when you're looking at your monthly payments. Bankrate says that if you're taking out a $10,000 federal undergrad loan, you'd pay about $3,000 in interest total at that old rate. That's compared to $3,600 in interest at the new rate. So it is $600 more expensive. Now, this is only going to apply to people who are getting new loans. So if you already have debt, you're locked in at your existing rate. People who are taking out graduate or parent loans will actually end up paying higher rates, closer to 8 or 9%. The good news for borrowers is that the federal government has expanded options for student loan forgiveness. Families can see if they qualify by going to studentaid.gov.
I'm sorry, but that's not something you can just sit there and smile at. Let's really point this out here for a second, guys. And I'm just gonna throw that down there for a second, because you're not about to sit there and say this is a good idea. You're going to sit there and say, for a federal undergraduate loan that in 2023 last year, it was at 5.5 interest rate. You're saying now in 2024 or 2025, it's going to be 6.5, nearly 7%. So if we're being honest here, it's almost a 2% increase in a undergraduate loan on undergraduate loan interest rate. That's not, I'm sorry, that's not good. Because again, I keep stressing this out, guys. The student loans and things of that nature that's out there, that right there it's a fixed, it's a fixed interest rate. Yes, but it's the interest rate that increased. Because again, student loans are predatory lending. It is a predatory lending practice. I know a lot of people are going to sit there and say, well, it wasn't like they were kids when they signed it. Well, in a sense, they were. Imagine that you're 18 years old. Imagine that you graduated from college. Graduated from high school. The only way you can get to college is by student loans. But at 18 years old, and depending on your level of financial literacy, which again, for a lot of people, depending in some areas, you may not have that. So they give it the soft sell. Oh, well, you'll be able to afford this. There's no problem. You just have to, just think of it as an investment in yourself. And the fact that when you're out, you'll be able to get a career with a nice paying rate, and you'll be able to pay us back no problem. Except the fact that the interest never stops. That's what I'm trying to get to understand, people. The real gotcha moment is the interest rate that accrues. Because forget the principal, you are constantly paying the interest rate. That you either have to rob a bank or come into a load of money in order to beat the interest rate to where it finally hits the principal. And for a lot of people, it never does, because the interest rate still rolls over. You still wind up owing. It is like having a casino it's like having a casino of patrons that constantly pay or have no choice, because again, as we said before, having student loan debt on your credit report isn't good, but the debt to income ratio may disqualify you from a lot of things. At the same time, I'm sorry, the Department of Education, this is not something that we can just be happy about. We should be asking ourselves, why is it that we have to go these far and this lengths for our educational system, for people that want to get higher learning, have to jump through these hoops, that did not get scholarships, that did not have multiple means, that did not have rich parents or relatives, and yet they have to sign their life away. Which is why I say a lot of kids are saying, hell no, I'd rather not sign up for debt for a maybe. Which is different from the trades industry, where you could be an electrician, a welder, a machinist, a fabricator, contractor, plumber, auto technician. Again, those are the careers that honestly will never go away. And yet at the same time, you can make a lot of money as an apprentice. But I digress. But I'm just saying, Department of Education, you need to be asking why you're not getting the bigger piece of the defense partners of the Department of Defense pies. That's just me. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our feel-good segment, because usually, guys, on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes they lead you faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow is Friday, which is pre-hump day. I'm sorry, pre-Friday. It's Friday Eve, which is Thursday. That was terrible. Anyway, tomorrow's Thursday. We'll leave you guys out some good notes, good vibrations. Again, congratulations to the class of 2024, whether you graduated elementary school, high school, or college. We're going to definitely shout out one individual. This woman here that we're about to show, Madison Crowell, is a graduate of a high school that got accepted into 231 schools and awarded nearly $14.7 million in scholarships. I love to see these stories, and they definitely should be celebrated. But here we go.
Because I'm coming from a low-income area of Georgia, and so I want to show the kids here in Liberty County that it's possible to get accepted into not only, just local schools like Georgia Southern and Savannah Tech, but that you can get accepted into schools like University of Alabama and University of Colorado, and things that you think might be out of your reach, but it's definitely in reach. That was just an outlet to, release energy so that I'm not always at home, because I'm a huge extrovert. If anybody knows me, I'm always willing to help somebody. I will be studying exercise science at, drumroll please, High Point University.
Wow. We welcome you to our HBU family. You're going to do exceptional things right here at the Premier Life Skills University, where we call everybody to be extraordinary. The sky is not the limit. Madison, you know what I'm talking about. And when you come here to High Point University, we know you'll be a leader. We know you'll make amazing things happen. We're here to resource you, cheer you on, and celebrate your victory. But for now, welcome to High Point University. And congratulations on your many outstanding achievements.
At the end of the day, I'm just another student. I really try to emphasize that I'm another one of your peers. I'm just the same as you. We're all going through the same process right now. We're about to graduate, some of us with uncertain futures. And, I just want to make it known that nothing is impossible and that the sky is not the limit, and that you want to keep pushing for greatness.
And again, I just want to give that young woman her props, because again, 231 schools she was accepted into, $14.7 million in scholarships that she will be attending High Point University. Again, gotta give the roses where roses are due, because $14.7 million in scholarships. I'm just saying, yo, ma, your parents are like, woo. I'm sure they're proud. But for parents out there who pay tuition, you know what I mean. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I do thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate it. We simply put, cannot do this without you. You can definitely find me, Black_Spartan615, pretty much wherever their socials are. Feel free to say hi or follow me because I usually cover a lot of things, but definitely do that. Also, I cannot talk about Blur Station, guys, enough. BlurStation.com is the new vehicle. We keep saying we wanted something of our own, a vehicle for all of our content, whether it's comic books, whether it's movies, television shows, art, things of that nature, you name it. Blur Station is basically it. I keep telling you guys, this is where you want to be when Netflix and everybody else turns their back on us, because again, content is everything, and if you are a person of content or a content creator, you'll definitely love Blur Station. If you do want to join, go ahead and hit the Join Now button for me, and when you do hit the Join Now button for me, definitely go to the Blur's Eye View Affinity membership, and from there, guys, for the Affinity Influencing Partner, if you don't mind selecting Black Spartan, I would certainly appreciate that. As you can see here, guys, it is $10.99 a month. $10.99 a month for Blurred Station. I, again, cannot stress that enough. $10.99 a month means that you can still enjoy the wonderful programming there, entertainment there, and still be able to, I don't know, eat, go do other things, because let's be honest, streaming is starting to get a little bit more expensive. Things are starting to bind up. Even cable's starting to rear its ugly head again. But at Blurred Station, it's $10.99 for the Affinity membership. Again, select me, Black Spartan, as the Affinity Influence Partner. I would certainly appreciate that. And again, after 36 months of paying $10.99 a month, you do have the ability to own a piece of Blur Station. Again, all very cool things. And again, we can't do it without you. The link at the bottom, guys, I'll make that just a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you'll copy and paste that link into your browser, take my link to the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit Off One's podcast. Of course, we get bit, of course, every Friday at 7 p.m. or a little bit later at 8, depending on when we get started. But again, we will cover the news of the week and go from there. But again, like, share, turn on notifications. I keep stressing this, guys. We simply cannot do this without you. And again, you help us out. You really do. But as we wrap this up, guys, I cannot stress this enough about this upcoming election. Yes, it is going to be a battle of grumpy old men. But at the same time, that's not the only battle that's going on. Please check your local elections. There are people that are running in there. People are running to either keep their positions or to enter new positions. Get to know these people, grill them, get to know their position on a lot of things, because they are going to be representing you. So you want the person up there that's going to be doing the best job for you. And you can only do that if you get information and get involved. Or if you feel like running yourself, there are plenty of sites out there that can actually help you to learn how you can run for office if you feel like you call civil service. Hopefully you'll do better than what we got. But the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are giving you all the information allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better in society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to basically right the wrongs of the past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, by we should have really done back then. Like electing our first Black woman Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as a National Cybersecurity Director. All great things. We don't learn from history, guys. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up on our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this. Take care, guys, and good night. Peace.